Showbiz Junkies. This question is for all of you. So, what has surprised you the most about Star Trek's evolution and influence in our culture?
Let's start.
But I do have to say, when I look at Star Trek, I'm very myopic. I always look at the messaging. The science fiction is great, and I do love that, but I do love how it inspires so many people. And for me, being sort of late into Star Trek, because I didn't really appreciate it as a young kid, the amount of people who will come up to me and share stories about how Star Trek inspired them, similar to what Bill said, is just amazing that a TV show can do this. And 50 years later, I often thank the fans for keeping Star Trek on for 50 years, but I do have to say, I want to thank all of you for keeping Star Trek on for 50 years. You guys have really made it something special, so thank you.
What was the question again? Influence on Star Trek. The state of this country right now terrifies me and saddens me, and I feel like we need something like Star Trek to remind us that collectively as the human race we're going to get our shit together, and we're going to build a better future, and we have to start working much harder on that today.
For me, there was a story, I don't think the press was in on the panel, but there was a story that I believe you told about the hive in the original stage. There was a buzzing, and it turned out to be a live hive. You remember? Yeah. Live hive. And here's the influence of Star Trek. There was this live hive, and this insect stung me, which began the line, to be or not to be. And that's the influence of Star Trek.
Constantly amaze me. Really amazing. Bill said it the best way. I'm astounded by anything surviving on television in any form for 15 years. Yeah. Television has only been around for
51.
But no, in reality, it's 65 or whatever. It's fun. It really is. And it shows a collectiveness of conscience that has spread around the planet. It's astounding.
Yeah. There is something about,
I'll see your answer.
Now for our next guest. The influence of Star Trek, Star Trek is just the most amazing phenomenon. It is, I think, the great American epic. It is anything that has gone for 51 years, you have to take seriously. I know there are a lot of people who think Star Trek is practically a religion. There are other people who think it's absolutely silly. And it's somehow all of those things combined. And that's what makes it wonderful. And just the fact that Scott said it's lasted 50 years. Even if you think it's completely ridiculous, you have to kind of go, wait a minute, what is this that's gone for 51 years? I've got to at least check it out. There's something going on here, and it's affected a lot of people. We've all had people come to us and say, it's because of your show or because of you that I am now a doctor or a scientist or exactly. So there's something more going on there than meets the eye. There's a wonderful action-adventure show, but there's also something deeper and more profound than that.
Great. I don't think it was a surprise to me because I wasn't a Star Trek fan when I signed up for the show, but I was sort of aware of it. And I was certainly And that's incredibly how it inspires people. And I think, like you said, there is obviously something more to this than just a show about space and exploration and adventure. And I think, for me, when I explored what could possibly be this captivating for so many people, is it's so optimistic and hopeful. And we need that so desperately, as Brian said, now. And it's about embracing everyone. And I mean, my God, they had, this was 1960.
Don't ask me.
This was not
I can't remember
not that
that
long
many
after World War II, and they've got a Japanese character on the bridge. This was in the height of the Cold War, and they've got a Russian on the bridge. They've got the blacks and the whites, the first interracial kiss. And that was the whole message that Gene was putting out there, is inclusion and embracing everyone's differences. And we're all the same. And we've got to get back and realize that. It's scary now. Everybody is terrified and everyone else is different, and it's so crazy.
I mean, it's very interesting. I always thought when these questions were asked that Star Trek, Gene's show and all that was great television because in those days there was a lot of great television. I mean, a lot of the television that was kind of overlooked were the science fiction shows, and the science fiction shows in those days were doing really stuff that was groundbreaking because they could, because it was science fiction. And out of that group of shows, I think you can see that Star Trek was definitely leading the way. And it really had this new voice that I think that we all were feeling in the 60s, which was, hey, wait a minute, you know, it doesn't have to be the way it was before. It doesn't have to be the way it was for my parents. You know, this is something new. It speaks to me. But, you know, these days I couldn't tell you why it's lasted this long. I mean, it's one of those amazing things. I mean, we did our 25th anniversary when we started, and you couldn't imagine the huge amount of crowds that were out there for just for our show. And that was amazing to me that it has that influence. But I mean, if I had to pinpoint something, I would have to say that for every person that watches Star Trek that's a big fan of the show, they have a different reason for loving it as much as they do. And it's a myriad of answers. I mean, it could be a person feels included, a person feels left out, a person feels hope for the future, a person feels science. I mean, whatever it is, the number of reasons is a myriad of reasons. There just isn't any one particular reason. So, I mean, my original thought of that, it was really great television when it started. I mean, he knew how to do that. So, but the influence,